Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
Yo guys, this interview was so freaking inspiring. How about launching a brick and mortar in the middle of a pandemic? One that employs and supports refugees in Los Angeles. Meymunna Hussein is the star behind all of this. Born out of the success and inspiration of the TIYYA Foundation, a non-profit she established with her mother, Flavors from Afar is a social enterprise that partners with former refugees to help develop their culinary careers in their new country while building bridges between them and their SoCal neighbors. Muna has been voted by Congressman Adam Schiff as Woman of the Year 2020 and recognized for her professional contributions by the Office of Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles. She was awarded by Orange County Grantmakers as an emerging leader and co-teaches a service learning course at SoCal University. Muna is currently an active board member of the LA Refugee Forum. Man, if this stuff doesn't get you inspired, I don't know what will. Enjoy the show, guys. All right, welcome to the pod, Muna. How you doing?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so glad you're here. I'm super excited to have you. I love your story. I'm really excited for people to hear it. And I mean, it's just crazy what you've been doing. And I can't wait into getting into launching a purpose-driven brick and mortar business in the middle of a pandemic, which is crazy. But before we do that, I want to ask you, give me your last oh shit moment. You can just comes to mind. What was the last moment that you were like, oh shit? And that could be good. It could be bad. It could be anything you want.
I would say this pandemic was the most recent oh shit moment. To be honest with you, a couple of friends had warned me, and I thought they were conspiracy theorists.
Really? They warned you?
Yeah, they warned me a few weeks before our grand opening, which was scheduled for March 21. And way before the stay-at-home orders were put in place, they were paying attention to international news.
Right.
And I was just like, we're okay. That wouldn't happen to us.
And you had scheduled for March 21, you said?
Oh, yeah.
That's so, anyone listening, think about that. March 21, that's it. It's when shit hit the fan. And you were scheduled to open your brick and mortar, which is crazy. So, and we'll get more into that. And what was your last hell yeah moment?
When we got recognized by LA Magazine, I think that was like oh, nice. You know, this is being persistent and resilient. Is it feels rewarding, you know. Absolutely. People are recognizing us.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
really
you.
Awesome. Really awesome.
Thank you.
Before we get into Flavors from Afar, which is where you're at today, actually.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about TIYYA. What does that even stand for? What is it about? And just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so TIYYA, spelled TIYYA, means my love in Oromo. It's a language that's spoken in Ethiopia and throughout East Africa. And I grew up with the language. It means my love, feminine, because the masculine would be Kia. Kind of like how a friend who speaks Farsi or who's Persian would say your name and then June. We would say your name and then you would say Tia or Kia, like as a way of like endearment.
Totally got that. I grew up with a lot of Persian friends. So it was like Seb June, Seba June, Sebastian, Mama June, Papa June. So I totally get what you're saying. That's really cool.
Yeah. Same concept. Name, Tia, name, Kia. So, but my mom and I, when we established a nonprofit, we chose that name also because it sounds familiar to the ear. So no matter what language you speak, the word Tia sounds familiar. So it was a nice way to celebrate our culture through philanthropy while staying connected to just an international community.
So tell me a little bit more about your mom and why did she start this? What is the mission of TIYYA?
Yeah, so TIYYA's mission is to provide basic necessities and communal support for newly arrived refugees, low-income immigrants, displaced American families, which was really prevalent when you remember the Katrina, for example.
Yeah.
Families were starting over in Southern California. And my mom was very passionate about this work around displacement and refugees because her own experience. as a refugee from East Africa. And she lived in a camp for about 8 years.
Wow.
Is where she met my father. I was born on the camp, and we resettled here in Southern California in the early 80s. So as a passion project of hers, whenever there was a local resettlement agency or a refugee cause that needed support, she was there to provide basic necessities for them. And while I was in grad school, I was able to help formalize her vision into an actual nonprofit. And my intention was to establish this organization for her. And then around 2012, it triggered her PTSD. So she
Wow.
stepped away. Yeah. And with that, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's just something that my community doesn't really talk about, is various traumas that people experience. But it affected my mom more so because now she was in the media. She was on the front cover of LA Times. She was speaking to different college campuses, retelling her story over and over about the camp experience. And her exact words to me were, you know, people are educated by my story, but I'm the one who walks away with these nightmares. And it really affected me. And I had to do some soul searching and figure out what my intentions were. How did I play a role in establishing this nonprofit for her? And my husband too is very passionate about refugee work. At the time, he was a case manager at the International Rescue Committee, which is the same group that resettled us in the early 80s. So I felt like everything was coming full circle. And it was actually with my dad's blessings that I stepped in as the role of the executive director and carried the nonprofit forward since 2012.
That's amazing. What a story. What a story. What does, you know, we hear the term refugee a lot, and I mean, if you live, you know, if you live away from that, in a sense, you have an idea of what that is. You think about a refugee, you think about a refugee camp, you think about war, persecution, whatever that may be. What does that look like today? What's a modern day refugee? Because a lot of people, I think, don't even realize how prevalent that really is today. So what is that? How does that even translate into? What is it like a refugee today?
So I think when you think of refugees, there's a caricature of what a refugee looks like. It's this like meek, poor person with a bag traveling through the desert, trying to find a place to dwell. And in reality, that's not the experience I've had. I mean, I've worked with refugees from all over the world, and it affects you whether you were once a millionaire or if you were working in an agricultural society. It's something that's outside of your control, just like COVID is outside of our control.
Right.
I've worked with people who had to flee their home country because of civil unrest, like in Venezuela, or because of war, like Afghanistan. So there's various factors that are outside of a human being's control. And sometimes the nation that you live in cannot protect you from what's going on, so you have to flee. And refugees could flee either because of political reasons, social reasons, maybe, you know, their sexual identity, their gender, whatever it is where that nation can no longer protect them. This person has to flee their roots. You know, these are countries where people could point back to their great grandparents.
Yeah.
And now they're forced to flee and start over. So, yeah, a refugee, it by definition is someone who is displaced for factors that are out of their control.
I think it's important to highlight that caricature that you were just talking about, because a lot of people really have that idea and they don't realize that refugees could just be, it's just everyday people that just happen to be in a crazy bad situation that is out of their control.
Out of their control, yeah. And I think now TIYYA is 10 years old this June. So I've been working in this very high trauma environment for about a decade. And I could say with confidence that there's just a lot of shame around the history of displacement and a history of like being a refugee, or once having your social status and then the way. I mean, we're talking about men and women who were doctors and lawyers and engineers, and or maybe they were in agriculture, or a stay-at-home mom who knew all of her friends in her neighborhood, now are uprooted and starting over. So yeah, I think that part is the most traumatizing, and
Absolutely.
People internalize it as shameful.
Yeah. So what exactly does TIYYA do for refugees today in LA?
Yes, so our services are actually LA and Orange County, and we first started with youth-focused programming. So it was all about working with children who were starting over in the US, and we decided that soccer was a good start. So we hosted a program with Soccer Without Borders, which is still now operating under the TIYYA Foundation. And
Awesome.
from soccer, it grew into free tutoring, and we did arts and recreation and did a lot of field trips, especially down to the Home Depot Center to watch the LA Galaxy teams play. So that was the youth programming side. And then in 2014, I acquired a government contract to provide job placement for the adults. So it took a few years, and then we were able to do programming for the adults, which was basically 15 hours of vocational English classes, weekly employment workshops, helping them with job coaching, acquiring employment as quickly as possible. And then in 2017, because of just shift in government grants, that contract ended. So we pivoted and continued the vocational courses and employment workshops through culinary arts. And then the culinary arts side, we called it Flavors from Afar. And that's where we were able to provide these adults on-the-job training to explore their different cuisines, because we didn't teach them how to cook. They had to audition. So after they showed interest in the culinary arts and like they were self-taught chefs, then we were able to help refine that through our program. And then in 2000, I want to say 2018 and 19, it got really popular quickly, where our catering sales exceeded the nonprofit programming side. So we were advised to separate the two entities. So now Flavors from Afar is its own restaurant and bodega located in Little Ethiopia, where we still provide the on-the-job training. And then through TIYYA, we do the programmatic workshops. And because of COVID, our chefs work with a program instructor, Jalen, one-on-one versus in group settings.
Got it. And that's what you're living in today. But let me back up a little bit. So you essentially, you had to shift because you were having different forms of funding for a nonprofit. You were helping all these refugee families through all these epic programs that you guys had done.
Yeah.
And essentially, what was happening in the world that caused this? Like, why did you stop getting that funding that it actually made you think, it got the light bulb going, hey, we actually need to get a for-profit going because it's actually going to help the nonprofit better than before?
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, Naum.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the nonprofit model, you're left to the whims of what's happening politically around you. So depending on your cause, you could be quickly popular, like overnight, if your cause has any relevance to what's going on in the media, or you could be quickly shunned away depending on what's going on politically. Unfortunately, the refugee resettlement world has never been a bipartisan issue, but in around 2016, 2017, you saw a very like anti-immigrant sentiment that was led by the White House, you know, wanting to build a wall and, you know, banning different countries. And we knew that the writings were on the wall, that like we can't just continue to wait for these grants. So we did have to pivot and really lean on the greater community who wanted to give back and support, regardless of how they vote. But
right, because that's the
yeah,
point.
because you'll find the immigrant story on all sides of the spectrum.
Absolutely. That's what America really is about. And that's an amazing pivot that you guys did. That's a really cool pivot. So tell me a little bit about, you started Flavors from Afar. It was actually more of a catering business. And then we started the show by saying that you're going to be launching, or that you were going to be launching brick and mortar in March.
Yeah.
And so that is, which is where you're at today. And that brick and mortar is going to be a restaurant. And tell me a little bit about the mission of that restaurant, a little bit of, I know you guys have a 1-for-1 model, and how you're pivoting and what that all looks like.
Yes. So currently, the way that we are staying relevant right now during COVID-19 is by having a 1-for-1 campaign, because food disparity is a big deal right now in LA and Orange County. So for every item that you order from us for takeout or pickup, we're able to match that with a box of pantry items that is dropped off to a local family in need, and they find it at their doorstep, which is really
That's
nice.
awesome.
So we're these like secret Santa Clauses. And
So cool.
I have some pantry items behind me here. It's like a ton of toilet paper. So
nice. That's great. Hey, that's gold right now.
Yes, it is. Yes. Another way that we're helping out is starting May 24th, which is this Sunday. We're going to have free happy hour for frontline workers. So if you're in the healthcare industry or working at a local restaurant right now, you could stop by from the hours of 4 to 6 p.m. for free dinner, which we'll have ready for them, prepackaged.
That's great.
And then in June, I'm actually now sitting in what will be the bodega. We're going to have organic produce, and we're going to have different pantry items from all over the world, and it'll be sold at whatever you can afford. So no one will be turned away.
That's amazing.
If you need some tomatoes, thank you. Yeah. So if you're having trouble paying for groceries, you can stop by. You pay what you can, and if you feel really blessed right now and abundant, then you could pay it forward for the next family that stops by.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you've got, your mom was inspired to start this nonprofit to help refugees and help families. You ended up taking it over. You went through this transition that you had some challenges along the way that made you pivot into a for-profit to fund this nonprofit. And so I feel like you've gone through a lot in that history of about 10 years, right? Or 12 years or so total. Is there one story that sticks out of one person or one family that makes all of this worth it and reminds you on a daily basis why you do this and why you have this type of business model?
Yeah, so I actually have a board member currently. His name is Aja. He's from the Congo. And when we first met him, it was in 2015 as a client. And he was sleeping on a friend's couch, just moved to the US, and he was getting $300 a month through the Refugee Cash Assistance Program to sleep on this couch. And then that $300 he was paying his rent with, and taking the bus over to the TIYYA office for like English classes and employment workshops. And he keeps me inspired because today, in such a short amount of time, he's a self-made entrepreneur who has a import-export company for vanilla beans and coffee beans.
Wow.
And has all kinds of investments behind him.
Really?
And and you want to talk about like act as if from like day one, like this is the guy. Even if he was on the bus, he was like, I'm gonna make it in the US. And what's really beautiful about him is even the way he approached his networking style. He was first working at grocery stores and was making friends and like building his network and like attending a church. And then from there found a really, wonderful like living arrangement with some friends in Orange County. And then he was I guess like a busboy at a restaurant. It's a brewery in Tustin, if you're familiar with Tustin area, right off of like Newport Avenue. And while he was there, he was all about networking and making friends. So the owner was talking about how his beer would be so much better if he had vanilla beans, but it's just so expensive.
Huh.
And Aja was like, I know where to find vanilla beans.
Oh, man.
For real? Like, how much do you guys pay for vanilla beans in the US? So when he did his calculations, he was like, wow, it's just cheaper to like buy a plane ticket, go home and like figure this out. So he didn't go back to Congo. I think he went to like Madagascar or somewhere through like his contacts, and came back with a ton of vanilla beans and an import-export agent. And now his boss is his client.
That's amazing. That's an epic story. That's an awesome, awesome story.
Yeah. So that's one person that's made a huge impression in my life.
And is he involved with you guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a board member.
He's the board member. That's right. He's a board member.
He's a board member, and he's gonna have his product soon at Trader Joe's.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what's amazing is that your current model too is, it helps inspire all your workers that you hire, right? And the families that you're also helping. They hear stories like the one you just told. They see your story. And they get inspired to do, big things, and to know that there's a chance for them to make it and to live a good life, which everyone has the right to live, that we all should have the right to live, at least a decent life,
Mm-hmm. And one of our donors stopped by yesterday to Tia's office in Santa Ana, dropped off like a couple boxes of food, pantry items, because she saw us on social media. This woman used to be a Tia client. So just 2 years ago, she was a client who just moved out here from Iraq, and she's going to school at IVC and working like at a local market. And she went from client to now a donor.
That's amazing.
And I think it's amazing to see just to
clarify, when you say client, what exactly does that mean?
Oh, like a program participant. So she was doing ESL classes. Yeah.
There you go. Just wanted to clarify that, because some people may think that they were like a purchasing client. So.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
She was
My terminology is like social worker. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. So this was somebody that was receiving the help, and then later on in their life, you saw the full cycle and becomes a donor, and that's got to be super fulfilling. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, being in this position that you're in, Muna, how much does it help fuel your passion and also the passion of your employees? Do you see that translated into your employees and the people that work at Flavors from Afar and Tia?
I think what's really beautiful about our work with Tia and Flavors from Afar is it's like this gem, and you really don't know how big it is and how deep of a history there is from the surface. So I noticed whether it's a volunteer or a paid employee, there's just this, over time, like there's just this constant growing loyalty to the organization, and this appreciation for the work. Because I would say through our marketing, because it was very, very grassroots, it when you meet the people and you talk to the people and you come to the events and stuff. But it's just now starting to translate online. I think awesome. there's a saying that it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. So I feel like I'm living that right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you started getting on the news. You've been getting some press. Tell us a little bit about that. You were on BBC Oromo.
Yes.
And you're maybe going to be on the Food Network next?
Yep. I will be on the Food Network soon. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yes. So tell us about that. What show?
So it's called United Plates of America. And we have 2 locations, one which is Hard to use right now because we do cooking classes out of the Hood Kitchen in Costa Mesa. But pre-COVID, they were able to stop by and visit us and meet with one of our chefs who was teaching them about Kenyan coastal cuisine. Her name is Toma. And getting her story and how Toma knows my mom and, you know, their
That's so
relationship.
cool.
So
I
yeah.
love it. You know, this really fuels me, and I hope it fuels other people out there. Especially to me, what's really crazy is that shift that this all started as a nonprofit that needed help.
Yeah.
And to me, it really goes out to show that, you know, nonprofits are amazing, but they need the funding. And so if they have some sort of like funding that gets dried out, or they don't have the proper funding, they die out, or they just can't help as much as they want to help. And so for you guys to have transitioned that into a for-profit model to fund that nonprofit is amazing, because it really helps scale. It helps scale the help. It helps scale you know, what you're giving back to these families, which is amazing.
Yeah. And what's nice is like, it makes the cause more approachable. So maybe you don't have time to volunteer. Maybe you don't have the resources to write a $5,000 check, but you could stop by and eat.
That's right.
And you know that your meal is giving back locally.
That's right. So you're with the way that you're voting, like the people say, you're voting with your dollars, right? So I decide to spend my money in your restaurant because I know that, first of all, it's freaking delicious. I tried it last week, guys, and it's really good. And you guys have revolving, I know you're going to have different dishes every couple of weeks, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've had dishes from Belize, Egypt, Somalia. Next up is Eritrea, Venezuela, Iraq, Syria. So it's just all kinds of food.
My mouth
from
is watering.
All over the world. Yeah.
I love it. No, that's awesome. Like you said, people can give back that way. You don't have the chance to maybe write a $5,000 check, but hey, I can go eat. And I know that by eating at Flavors from Afar, I'm helping families, which is really awesome.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we need that $5,000 check.
Right. So if you guys got the 5,000, go ahead and write it up and send it over. We'll get you the address. That's great. So Muna, you are truly an amazing leader and a conscious leader with a, you know, a big heart and a lot of drive. So what should the new leader focus on? What is that one thing you think the new leader needs to focus on today?
Entrepreneurship mindset. I think mindset. Like you could easily get derailed as an entrepreneur, and if you could keep like your mindset focused and understanding what that means and studying it and surrounding yourself with the right people who understand what you're up to, you could go far real quickly. Because without it, I think like the day-to-day culture that we live in just wants you to get a 9 to 5 and, you know, your benefit packet, and, you know, that's comfortable. It's nice. I envy it sometimes, but but then there's this other sense of purpose that I feel like I have because I'm able to just go for it.
And because that purpose fuels you, you still need that mindset to be strong and keep that purpose fueling you, right? To keep going.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Right. Well, how can people connect with you? How can they connect with Flavors from Afar, with TIYYA?
Yeah, so whether you find us online under TIYYA, TIYYA.org, there's links that take you to Flavors from Afar and vice versa. You could go to flavorsfromafar.co and it'll take you to the TIYYA Foundation. We are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we have ongoing newsletters to the TIYYA Foundation community. And if you're strictly foodie, we have a newsletter just for Flavors from Afar as well.
That's awesome. And like I said, the food is delicious and it's an amazing cause. So I hope a lot of people support you, and I hope you really get a ton of press upcoming through the Food Network, and you have a lot of success so you can keep helping families and just keep fulfilling your purpose. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Muna. We appreciate you.
And please stop by sometime. We're in Little Ethiopia, right at the pedestrian crosswalk. Easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You know, it takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.